The next page will tell you that everything in there is based upon fact. All of the symbols used, artwork, etc. are fact. Welcome back to the Gunners Club. You're here with Gunner, of course, with Seuss, Dan Brown, and his character Robert Langdon. Now, is this the new thinking man's James Bond? Because you see, he's been at this for quite some time. This franchise has now just come out with its 6th book, The Secret of Secrets.
Is this planned as a movie?
Well, we'll talk a little bit about this.
Okay.
You see, the first book in the series, Angels and Demons, was published in 2000. We're in 2025 now, and this is our 6th book. In terms of the movies, we've had Mr. Tom Hanks. Thanks. That's how I read his name.
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. I pictured Harrison Ford in that, not Tom Hanks. But I've been shown to be wrong.
Yeah, so Tom Hanks played Robert Langdon in 3 of the movies. A 4th one was planned. That was Inferno, but it was cancelled. Instead, they've made that... not Inferno, that was the 3rd one. The 4th one was about the Masons, and that was instead put into a TV series for Amazon. So you can still see it. That's called The Lost Symbol. I think the first time I read Angels and Demons, I thought I was onto something really great. This is something novel. This is something I haven't read before, because you see, there's so much of an interweaving of technology, modern thought, but also harkening back to symbology, religion, theology, and ancient thought all together. I thought this is just spellbinding. And put to that as well, there's always a lot of guns, some pretty women, and a lot of action. Much like James Bond, he's always keen to look out for another exotic city. But you see, once you've spun the wheel round a few times, it gets a little bit more formulaic. We were dazzled, the whole world was, when the book The Da Vinci Code came out. The premise of it was quite fantastic. What if, in fact, all of English literature, which is about the search for the Holy Grail, was condensed into this book? But what if, imagine the Holy Grail was not a cup or a plate that was receptacle, either for the wine that Jesus shared with the disciples for the Last Supper, or in fact contained his blood from the crucifixion? What if instead it was metaphoric, and instead the chalice was Mary Magdalene? And what if Mary Magdalene had actually conceived a child with Jesus? And what if that family still was alive today? Now add to that tales of the Priory of Sion, who were there to protect the lineage of Jesus, and a little bit of pseudo-religious facts. And you've got something which was just barnstormingly successful.
It was.
I urge you this. If you read it or you see the film, don't believe the religious facts which are put your way. Do some independent research for it, because I think you'll find a lot of them are not facts, unsupported, and really just conjecture and entertainment. So let me leave it at that for you. The reason I have to make that point is this. Once you get past the title page and the dedication page, the next page invariably in his series will tell you that everything in there is based upon fact. All of the symbols used, artwork, etc. are fact, and the organisations mentioned have actually historically existed as well. Look, don't believe everything that you read there. A lot of this is conjecture. It's trumped up so that you've got something really wonderful to read. And like James Bond, the foes... You can imagine Spectre from the later James Bond movies. These are people who lurk in the darkness. For example, an assassin albino monk from the Da Vinci Code. It's preposterous. It's known that albinos have very poor sight, so you wouldn't want to put a long-distance rifle in the hands of an albino monk. Makes for a great story, though.
It's a little bit like Chaos.
You're referring to Get Smart. So the stories are fascinating. I like to read them because they're based... The current ones have been based in European cities, recently in Budapest, and the most recent one, Secret of Secrets, in Prague. And you get to learn a little bit more about the history of these cities. But what I'm finding is this. The things I find truly fascinating, he goes so far off-piste, so far off the course or off fact, that it really just reams way past fantasy. So if you want to actually research this yourself, I think you're probably better off buying a book on the topic. The Secret of Secrets deals on consciousness. What is consciousness? Is it simply mechanisms of firing neurons that make a decision and that can actually grasp an idea or form a portrait, a concept? Or in fact, is it simply an antenna which reaches out to a consciousness field which exists in the cosmos? It's pretty far out to try to prove that. Under Prague, there's a lair, you can imagine, with a coffin-shaped chair in a laboratory where you strap a person in, pump them full of chemicals, and bring them to a near-death experience and record what they're experiencing. These things really are past preposterous and really untested scientifically. And for some people, you'd say, well, that's really the reason why it's worth reading. But to me, it seems that what he does is this. He looks for an angle and then does a Wikipedia dump on it to see how he can put these ideas into a story, and then puts the story around that. But the problem is the stories are becoming increasingly generic. In the movies, it's been critiqued that you've got a running scene, and whilst Tom Hanks is on the run with an attractive professor by his side, he's invariably giving some exposition as to the language that he's using to decode something, or who previously lived in that area and why he believes the entrance will be found in a certain place. So the films for Tom Hanks became increasingly give the dialogue of exposition and run at the same time. It gets a little bit methodical. And the books are very much the same way as well. In terms of the romantic encounters, I find them extremely wooden. This is not a man who would be able to write a romance novel. I find it almost inexplicable to understand why the female characters and Robert Langdon are together at all. We've got to know and love the character. We know how he dresses. We know he's a professor at Harvard. We know that he does his couple of miles swim every morning before he starts the day. We know a lot about him, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to be more sympathetic for him because we don't really understand the relationships that he has with other people. They're so unidimensional. Like James Bond, the world has been put in peril over and over again. Think about an Illuminati plot on the Catholic Church, and the way to destroy the church was through antimatter.
Yeah.
Think about James Bond, okay? Do you remember in the 70s movies with Roger Moore? Invariably, he'd run through a cave and there would be large freestanding computers with big spools, the reel-to-reel spools that would be running. Well, you see the exact same thing in The Secret of Secrets, except he points out on the run, underground, running past that field of computers, they're quantum computers. It's a little bit twee. The exposition becomes a little bit silly. There was a situation in The Secret of Secrets where he has to uncode a password, and it turns out that all the secrets were given the night before the assassination of the lady who held the technology in a drunken night. So she had a couple of drinks and she gave him enough cryptic clues to be able to open it. I mean, look, it's entertaining. I really ran through the first few hundred pages on holiday, had the time in the book to myself, and thought this is a lot of fun, until I realised that the same tropes keep turning up. There's only so many times a man can use a mirror to look around a corner and someone's coming after him, or a shadow figure who's a couple of levels higher up than the protagonists you're introduced to at the start finally take the matter into their own hands and come looking for Robert Langdon. The technology is consistently bizarre, quite frankly. Here we're dealing with the realms of consciousness and whether it's actually localized or it extends to the cosmos. In things like The Lost Symbol, we're talking about the Freemasons and the influence over the human mind. So these things are beyond metaphysical. They're certainly not scientific, and they're certainly not tests. So if you're looking for a scientific textbook, although usually the third page or so declares that this is all scientifically correct and you'll be able to find this information, it just ain't there. It just ain't there. I don't know how much air is left in the series. I don't know if Robert Langdon's probably swam his final lap. I would imagine the books keep selling, so I don't think that he has.
Maybe it's along the same lines as The Fast and the Furious. Oh, are they up to the 15th iteration now?
They are, and they also did some spin-offs with, was it Shaw and Hobbs, I think, which was probably the best in the series, to be quite honest. But a good punch to the nutsack is always humorous.
Well, I always thought so, unless you were on the receiving end, of course.
I tell you this, if you are genuinely interested in the work of Dan Brown, pick up a couple of his books. I would suggest starting at Angels and Demons and then read the Da Vinci Code. Not that I'd agree with what's been expounded in it, particularly in the Da Vinci Code, but it is very, very entertaining. And then I'd suggest that maybe, if this sort of thing is for you, actually have a look into maybe old languages yourself, or have a look into something like theology. Maybe go to have a look at some texts outside of the mainstream Gospels and look for some of the Gnostic writings, some of the things that weren't included in the New Testament. I think that'll give you a real buzz, because it's something which is legitimately antiquated, legitimately is symbolic and metaphoric, and that you'll be able to scratch and find many different levels underneath. But if not, book 6, if you read books 1 to 5, it's going to be more of the same. There'll probably be a book 7, and we'll see you in a couple of years to discuss that as well.
I'll definitely be running out to get it. Catch us for the next exciting episode, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you soon.